June 13th, 1994. A beloved football legend is suddenly the lead suspect in a gruesome double murder, and the quiet streets of Brentwood are awash in flashing lights. Within days, O.J. Simpson's name goes from sports pages to every living room on Earth as a shocking car chase interrupts the NBA Finals and glues 95 million viewers to their screens. The shocking case of O.J. Simpson isn't just a story of crime. It's the moment America's obsession with celebrity and justice exploded on live television. But what pushed a national hero to the center of this chaos, and what was everyone missing as the world watched? The answers begin where the first sirens wailed. At sunrise on June 13th, 1994, Brentwood was still and ordinary. By mid-morning, the neighborhood was overrun with police cruisers, news vans, and the first wave of reporters who had caught the scent of something far bigger than a routine homicide. The crime scene had a gravity all its own. Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman, both stabbed repeatedly, lay just inside the gate of Nicole's Bundy Drive townhouse. The sidewalk was streaked with blood, the air thick with the sound of police radios and the low hum of disbelief. Neighbors stood behind yellow tape, whispering the same question: how could this happen here? The first names to circulate weren't the victims, they were O.J. Simpson's. By noon, the media had already begun to pivot. O.J., once the smiling face of Hertz, a Hall of Fame running back, a movie star, was now linked to a crime scene only blocks from his own mansion. Camera crews set up tripods on every corner, their lenses trained not just on the bloodied walkway, but on the possibility that America's most famous athlete might be at the center of it all. Newsrooms from Los Angeles to London scrambled for details, piecing together fragments: a white Ford Bronco spotted at the scene, a history of domestic calls to the Simpson home, a timeline that made less sense with every update. The contrast was impossible to ignore. For decades, O.J. had been the American success story, an icon whose reach crossed racial and cultural lines, a man who seemed untouchable both on the field and in public life. Now, the same face that grinned from cereal boxes and movie posters was splashed across breaking news banners. Paired with words like suspect and double murder, the press had never seen a story like it, and neither had the public. By midday, every major network had broken into regular programming. Phone lines jammed at news stations as viewers demanded answers. Was it really O.J.? Was he involved? What would happen next? As the day wore on, the details grew stranger. Reporters unearthed records of past police visits to the Simpson residence, calls for domestic disturbances, stories of violence that had never made it past the gossip columns. The narrative shifted from shock to scrutiny. Every aspect of Simpson's life, from his marriages to his business deals, was suddenly fair game for public consumption. The stakes were clear. This wasn't just a murder investigation. It was the unraveling of a myth, broadcast live to millions. By nightfall, Brentwood was no longer just a wealthy enclave in Los Angeles. It was the epicenter of a story that would hold the nation in its grip for months. The sidewalks where children once rode bikes became the backdrop for satellite trucks and journalists shouting questions into the dark. The line between celebrity and criminal blurred, and the appetite for answers only grew. In a single day, O.J. Simpson had gone from hero to headline, and the world was watching, hungry for every new detail. June 17th, 1994. Just after 6 p.m. in Los Angeles, a white Ford Bronco appeared on the 91 freeway, crawling through traffic at 35 miles per hour. In the driver's seat, Al Cowlings, O.J. Simpson's lifelong friend and former teammate. In the back, O.J. himself slumped low, holding a gun, talking to police by cell phone. Within minutes, the chase was live on every major network. The Houston Rockets and New York Knicks were battling in Game 5 of the NBA Finals, but NBC cut to a split screen. Basketball on one side, the Bronco on the other. Viewers across the country stopped what they were doing. In New York, office lights flickered as workers crowded around TVS. In California, diners abandoned restaurant tables to watch the drama play out. By the time the Bronco passed through Orange County, helicopters buzzed overhead and the freeways were lined with people waving signs, "Go O.J.," and holding up children for a glimpse. Some even brought lawn chairs, treating the chase like a parade. The numbers were staggering. An estimated 95 million Americans watched the pursuit live. Domino's Pizza reported record sales that night. People were glued to their screens, unwilling to step away for dinner. Across the country, productivity ground to a halt. Trading on the New York Stock Exchange dropped by 41% during the verdict, and phone lines jammed as friends and family called to ask, "Are you seeing this?" Even flights were delayed as passengers refused to board, huddling around airport monitors. Inside the Bronco, Cowlings pleaded with police not to provoke O.J., who threatened to end his life. LAPD negotiators broadcast over the radio urged him to surrender. For 2 hours, the chase unfolded in real time, suspense bleeding into every living room. The city was transfixed. At 8 p.m., the Bronco finally pulled into O.J., S. Rockingham Estate. Police waited as Cowlings and Simpson sat inside for nearly 45 minutes. Then at 8:53 p.m., O.J. stepped out, surrounded by SWAT, and was quietly taken into custody. The spectacle had changed everything. News anchors marveled at the sheer scale. Nothing like this had ever played out live before. The chase became instant pop culture, referenced in late-night monologues and water-cooler conversations. For television news, it was a revelation. Real-time drama had the power to pull in an audience larger than any scripted show. The demand for access skyrocketed. When court proceedings began, networks fought for camera rights, determined to keep viewers hooked. The Bronco chase wasn't just a car ride. It was the moment the O.J. Simpson story became a national obsession, and the line between news and entertainment blurred for good. By the time O.J. Simpson was taken into custody, the story had already outgrown the courthouse. What started as a high-profile murder case became the proving ground for a new kind of television, one that didn't just report the news, but lived inside it. June 1994 marked a turning point. Judge Lance Ito, presiding over the case, ruled that cameras would be allowed in his courtroom. This wasn't a single press pool or a handful of still photographers. This was a full-scale gavel-to-gavel broadcast accessible to millions. Court TV, a relatively new network at the time, seized the opportunity, dedicating its entire daytime schedule to the trial. CNN, sensing the public's appetite for every detail, followed suit. Suddenly, legal proceedings weren't just for lawyers and jurors, they were serialized daily drama for anyone with a television. Networks scrambled to adapt. Satellite trucks lined the streets outside the courthouse, feeding live signals to homes across the country and around the world. Producers built elaborate sets and designated legal analysts to break down testimony in real time. Former prosecutors, retired judges, and criminal defense attorneys became household names, explaining the nuances of hearsay and cross-examination between commercial breaks. The trial's cast expanded beyond O.J. and the lawyers. Reporters, sketch artists, and even the courthouse regulars became recurring characters in a national obsession. The logistics were staggering. Over 2,000 journalists received credentials. Temporary studios sprang up in parking lots and hotel lobbies. Every morning, camera crews jockeyed for position outside the building, hoping to catch a glimpse of the key players arriving. Inside, the courtroom itself was transformed. Multiple cameras, mounted unobtrusively, captured every raised eyebrow and whispered objection. The feed ran uninterrupted, from opening statements to sidebar conferences, sometimes stretching deep into the evening as the world watched. This was more than coverage. It was appointment viewing. People planned their days around the trial. Offices installed televisions in break rooms. Schools wheeled in carts for students to watch. The daily broadcast blurred the line between news and entertainment, creating a kind of legal soap opera with cliffhangers, heroes, and villains. Networks competed to keep viewers engaged, offering instant analysis and nightly recaps. Every new witness, every piece of evidence became a plot twist in a story that was unfolding live. The courtroom itself became a stage, and the lawyers knew it. Opening statements were crafted for the cameras as much as for the jury. Johnny Cochran's catchphrases, Marcia Clark's cross-examinations, and Judge Ito's rulings were dissected on talk shows and in living rooms. The case was no longer just about guilt or innocence. It was about narrative, spectacle, and the power of television to turn a criminal trial into a shared national experience. The O.J. Simpson trial didn't just make headlines, it changed the way America watched the news, setting the template for every televised courtroom drama that followed. By the time jury selection wrapped, the courthouse had become a destination in its own right. More than 2,500 reporters packed the press pens outside, some sleeping in vans or renting rooms in nearby hotels for months on end. Satellite dishes sprouted like weeds along Temple Street. The media dubbed it Camp OJ, a pop-up city of journalists, camera crews, and legal analysts all chasing the next headline. Every arrival, every coffee run, every whispered conversation was fair game for the nightly news. Court TV's gavel-to-gavel coverage turned legal minutia into daily drama. CNN, local affiliates, and talk radio hosts dissected every glance, every objection, every sidebar. Inside, the trial played out like a made-for-TV event. Johnny Cochran, already a star in Los Angeles legal circles, seemed to understand the cameras better than anyone. His suits, his cadence, even his catchphrases, everything was calibrated for maximum impact. Marcia Clark and Christopher Darden sparred with the defense, their every move critiqued not just by the jury, but by millions watching at home. The courtroom became a stage and the lawyers its leading cast. The cast of characters kept growing. Kato Kalin, O.J. quote, S. house guest turned a single night's testimony into tabloid fame. His shaggy hair and laid-back answers were replayed endlessly. Then came the evidence that would define the trial's spectacle, the glove. On June 15, 1995, prosecutor Christopher Darden asked O.J. to try on the blood-stained leather gloves found at the crime scenes. O.J. struggled, flexing his fingers, grimacing, saying, "They're too tight." Cochran seized the moment. His phrase, "If it doesn't fit, you must acquit," became instant pop culture. But the twist kept coming. In August, the defense unveiled the Mark Fuhrman tapes. Hours of recordings from the 1980s and early 90s packed with racist slurs and boasts of police brutality. When the tapes played in court, the room fell silent. Fuhrman, the detective who found the glove, had already denied using such language. Now his credibility was shattered. The defense hammered the point. If Fuhrman lied about this, could he have lied about evidence? The prosecution's case, once so solid, suddenly looked vulnerable. The trial became less about blood drops and timelines and more about narrative. The lawyers performed for the cameras as much as for the jury. The press ran with every twist. Dream Team outmaneuvers prosecution. Fuhrman bombshell shakes case. Tabloid headlines and late-night jokes blurred into the nightly news. For the public, it was addictive, a legal soap opera that ran for 134 days. People planned lunch breaks around testimony. Offices wheeled in TVs. Even the judge, Lance Ito, found himself lampooned on Saturday Night Live. By the fall, the legal arguments were almost beside the point. The trial's real legacy was its transformation of the courtroom into a national stage, where justice, celebrity, and media spectacle collided. The evidence was still being presented, but for millions, the verdict had already played out in the court of public opinion. October 3rd, 1995. At 10 a.m. Pacific, the country paused. Offices, schools, factories, millions stopped what they were doing and gathered around televisions. In New York, the stock exchange floor went silent. In Los Angeles, court employees squeezed into break rooms. Even the White House staff watched together. The verdict in the People versus Orenthal James Simpson was about to be read, broadcast live on every major network. More than 150 million people tuned in, making it one of the most watched moments in American television history. Productivity across the country cratered. Economists later estimated $480 million lost in a single hour as work came to a standstill. On the screen, the jury filed in, faces locked in stone. Judge Lance Ito asked the foreperson for the verdict. The words "not guilty" landed like a thunderclap. In black neighborhoods across Los Angeles, cheers erupted, car horns blared, strangers hugged in the street. In suburban offices, the reaction was often stunned silence. News networks cut to split screens, celebrations in South Central, tears and disbelief in Brentwood. The images were stark. America, watching the same event, seeing two different stories. The spectacle extended far beyond the courtroom. Water usage dropped nationwide, phone lines jammed, flights delayed as passengers refused to board until they heard the news. Camera crews captured the moment in bars, classrooms, police stations, and living rooms. The verdict didn't just end a trial, it divided a nation, exposing deep wounds over race, policing, and celebrity. For many, it was the end of innocence for televised justice. For others, it was a rare victory in a system stacked against them. The O.J. Simpson verdict was more than a legal decision. It was a mirror, held up to a fractured country, broadcast live for the world to see. By 1996, television news had changed for good. The O.J. Simpson trial proved there was a massive audience for wall-to-wall coverage, and networks rushed to meet the demand. That year, Fox News and MSNBC launched, each promising round-the-clock updates and live analysis. The appetite for real-time drama, once a novelty, became the new normal. Court TV, which had staked its reputation on the Simpson trial, expanded its reach. Legal analysts and courtroom personalities became stars in their own right. Viewers no longer waited for the 6 o'clock news. They expected instant access, expert breakdowns, and a steady stream of updates. The ripple effects went further. Reality television found its footing in the shadow of the Simpson spectacle. Producers saw how unscripted drama could pull in viewers by the millions. Shows like Cops and America's Most Wanted paved the way, but the Simpson case showed just how much the public craved stories where real people and real consequences were at stake. The lines between news, entertainment, and voyeurism blurred. For O.J. himself, the spotlight never faded, but the tone changed. In 1997, a civil jury found him liable for the wrongful deaths of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman, ordering him to pay $33.5 million in damages. He spent years dodging payments, living off his NFL pension and moving to Florida, where state law protected his home from creditors. Then, in 2008, Simpson was convicted of armed robbery and kidnapping in Las Vegas after trying to reclaim sports memorabilia. He was sentenced to 33 years in prison, serving 9 before his release in 2017. Simpson's final years were quieter, spent in Las Vegas, playing golf and posting videos online, still insisting on his innocence. On April 10, 2024, O.J. Simpson died of prostate cancer at age 76, surrounded by his children and grandchildren. The man who once commanded the world's attention slipped away, his story now a cautionary tale about fame, justice, and the power of a camera. The media world he left behind is a direct descendant of the trial that made him infamous: faster, louder, and always watching. On October 3, 1995, over 150 million people watched as O.J. Simpson was found not guilty, a verdict that cost the U.S. an estimated $480 million in lost productivity. The case exposed deep divisions, from the handling of forensic evidence to starkly different public reactions split along racial lines. While Simpson was later found liable in civil court in 1997 and convicted of robbery in 2008, key questions about the original murders remain officially unresolved. The trial transformed American media, launching networks like Fox News and MSNBC and setting the template for 24-hour coverage of real-life drama. O.J. Simpson died in 2024, but the documents and footage from his case continue to influence debates on justice, race, and celebrity. The facts tell a story bigger than one man, a moment when news, fame, and the law collided, shaping how we see trials and ourselves ever since.